Welcome back to Destroying Your Friendships. This time with Braids Cabal Minion. Luckily this card just got unbanned and it just makes players sacrifice artifacts, lands, and creatures at their upkeep. This stax piece is such a joy to put in the command zone and you'll make all your friends really happy to see a mono black stax deck. So let's dive down into this deck and show what it's like to sacrifice your stuff, make opponents sacrifice, and profit from all that. Let's start with how we sacrifice. The first way to show that our opponent's permanents are not safe is a Cursed Marauder. When it ETBs, each player sacrifices a non-token creature. That means we're going to hit something good, and they're going to love it. There is no better feeling than turning your board into fresh cards. Even if your board was good, it feels good drawing cards, right? That's where Iara, First of Lochthwain, comes in. We can sacrifice our black creatures to draw cards, and she gives us a drain effect when those black creatures ETB. Of course, we had to put the new Braids in this deck. Braids, a Risen Nightmare. She's going to allow us to sacrifice our own permanents to make opponents sacrifice permanents if they choose. If not, they lose life and we get some card advantage. Who thinks this is the best card draw spell in mono black? That's Deadly Dispute. Lets us sacrifice a creature and artifact to draw 2 cards and create a treasure. That's more sack fodder for our Braids. Great news, I included another one of my pet cards. I did make the video, so I had to include it. Luckily, this one fits. Innocent Blood. Simple. 1 mana, each player sacrifices a creature. Play this on turn 1 to get rid of all their mana dorks. If you can afford the Abyss, put it in your deck. If not, put Magus of the Abyss. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they choose one of their creatures and destroy it as long as it's not an artifact creature. I know it's not sacrifice, but I like the effect. Phyrexian Altar is a must-add in any Aristocrats deck. It allows us to sacrifice creatures to add mana, and we can use that mana to cast more creatures that we can sacrifice. It's a loop. Sorry, Fleshy Bee, I have the upgrade, Plague Crafter. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker. If they can't, they discard a card. Gives us something to do, even if there's no board on the board. Next up, we do have a true rage-causing classic, Pox. This sorcery makes each player lose 1/3 of their life, discard 1/3 of their hand, then sacrifice 1/3 of their creatures, then sacrifice 1/3 of their lands. You round up each time. How fun. Shealder's Edict gives us some flexibility, and we need to be flexible. You can make opponents sacrifice non-token creatures, token creatures, or planeswalkers. If there's a threat on the board, we have a chance at removing it. We have Pox's little brother, Smallpox. Does similar things, but a lot less of them. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacks a creature, then sacks a land. Soul Shatter gives us a way to remove the best threats on the board typically. Each opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker with the highest CMC among permanents they control. So, usually the higher CMC, the better the card. We've got another way to turn our permanents into card advantage. That's Village Rites. You sack a creature, you draw 2 cards, all for 1 mana at instant speed. Viscera's Seer is another classic in an Aristocrats build. For 1 mana, you get a 1/1 Vampire Wizard that lets you sack creatures to scry 1. So it's a free sack outlet and lets us know what's coming up next for our draw. War and Soul Trader is probably hands down the best card in the deck. In terms of sacrifice outlets, we pay a life, sack another creature, create a treasure token. So it's going to give us mana and give us tokens we can sacrifice to our Braids to keep our advantage up and our opponent's advantage down. As you've probably noticed as the astute viewer that you are, what are we going to sacrifice? How can we get an advantage from a deck that puts us down every single turn? I'll tell you, a lot of fodder. Let me show you. Our first fodder producer is a true classic. That's Bitter Blossom. This lower end block staple gives us a 1/1 black fairy for 1 life. We'll get one every turn and give us something to sacrifice to Braids. Black Market Connections is truly goated. This card's going to give us a new card every turn and make us treasure tokens and shapeshifters. That's 2 tokens every turn just for 6 life. I think it's worth it. Thank you, Aether Drift, for reprinting Bloodghast. This vampire spirit keeps coming back from the graveyard every time a land ETBs. Got a fetch land, he comes back twice in a turn. This keeps coming back for repeat sacrifice value. Tell Traditional Ramp to step to the side when we've got one that synergizes so well with our commander. That's Crowded Crypt. It's maybe a 3-mana rock, it adds a black, and whenever a creature dies, we put a corpse counter on it. Then we can sacrifice and make a ton of 2/2 black zombie creature tokens equal to the number of corpse counters on it. This gives us an instant board out of nowhere. Dreadhorde Invasion is basically another copy of Bitter Blossom in our deck. It's going to give us a zombie army every turn. I don't think we'll ever let them get big and give them lifelink, but it may come to that depending on the game you're in. How would you feel about turning everything you sacrifice and everything your opponents sacrifice into more bodies? We can do that with Fumulus the Infestation. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, you create a 1/1 black insect. And on top of that, whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. We've also included a few cards that replace themselves in this deck. For example, Infestation Sage. For 1 mana, you get a 1/1, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token. That means you get 2 bodies for the price of 1. Guess what? We've got more token makers. I love tokens, and I hope you love them too, because I'm going to include more on this list. This one is Jadar, Ghoulcaller of Nephalia. At the beginning of our end step, if you don't control a creature with Decayed, you get a 2/2 black zombie with Decayed. Yay! Move over, Master Splinter. I've got a real rat friend, Lord Skitter, the Sewer King. This guy's going to give us a rat at every combat, and he's got some other rat abilities, but we don't really care about those. We want the bodies. In our deck, Nested Shambler is basically Infestation Sage. Instead of insects, you get squirrels. Which is better? Tell me in the comments below. 9 Lives Familiar is such a flavorful card. It goes back on that old trope throughout history about cats having 9 lives. However, this one is a threat that will keep coming back. Every time it dies, you can bring it back if it had revival counters on it, and that means a body you can recycle through multiple times. It's time to showcase another rat bastard. That's Ogre Slumlord. Whenever a non-token creature we control dies, we get a 1/1 black rat. It also gives our rats Death Touch, so we have a little bit of a rat synergy in this deck. Ophiomancer just got reprinted. That means it's more available than ever. And what it does, it gives us a snake at every upkeep if we don't have a snake, and we're always going to sacrifice those snakes for value. There is no better feeling than getting a ton of mana when our Aristocrats deck is popping off. We can make that happen with Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever a creature we control dies, we get a treasure token. Simple text, big effect. Now that we have a board full of sack fodder and a ton of ways to sacrifice and make opponents sacrifice, what do we do next? We profit off that. Let's go. Of course, we're going to start with some Drain and Gain with Bastion of Remembrance. It's going to make it so whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 life. On top of that, it gives us a body to sacrifice to Braids. Of course, the unoriginality continues with Blood Artist. This is a classic staple in any Aristocrats deck. And whenever a creature dies, it doesn't matter who has it. Some player's going to lose a life and we're going to gain a life. Dictate of Erebos really doubles up that punishment because whenever we sacrifice a creature to our Aristocrats abilities or Braids, every other opponent's going to sacrifice a creature as well. We're going to keep them so down in resources, they're probably going to concede in frustration. Luckily, we have a repeat of Dictate of Erebos, and that's Grave Pact. It does the same exact thing. It may cost 1 mana less, and you lose out on flash, but I don't think that really matters in our type of punishment we're dealing out with this build. I may get clowned on for Harvester of Souls. A lot of folks don't like this card anymore for some reason. However, it's going to turn all that sacrifice shenanigans into more cards to fuel our strategy of making our opponents concede. You may never get to cast this card in a game. It does cost 12 mana, and that's It That Betrays. It's so flavorful though, I had to include it in this build. It's got Annihilator 2, and whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, that card comes to our side of the battlefield. All those Braids triggers means even more stuff for us. If you like playing with fire, this card is for you. That's Kothofed Soul Hoarder. Whenever a permanent owned by another player is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, we draw the card and we lose 1 life. We might lose too much life, but we'll have a grip of cards. That's worth it. Marionette Apprentice is such an upgrade over most Aristocrats cards. 1, because it comes with a body, and 2, it also includes artifacts instead of creatures for that drain effect. Massacre Worm provides 2 functions in this deck. 1, it's going to cause the board to get wiped on our opponent's side, and 2, it's going to drain our opponents every time one of their creatures dies. It's a win-win and a must-add for any deck in this vein. It's a great feeling drawing a card on everybody's turn, including our own, and that's where Morbid Opportunist comes in. Every time a creature dies, we draw a card. Sadly, it only triggers once per turn. Time for some heavy hitters now. That's where Sir Conrad the Grim comes in. Whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into the graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, he's going to deal 1 damage to each of our opponents. On top of that, we can mill folks, and everybody loves getting milled. Now it's time to include the Boogeyman of Commander, Tergrid, God of Fright. This card has such a bad reputation, but it performs oh so well in this deck. Whenever one of our opponents sacrifices a permanent or discards a card, we get that card on the side of our battlefield. The last piece of profit is Zulaport Cutthroat. Whenever Zulaport Cutthroat or another creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, it's going to be another drain effect on top of our many others. You may think this deck tag is over, but you'd be wrong. If you're a true monster, and I mean really, truly a monster, I've got some bonus content of 5 cards you should add to this deck to really turn that salt level up to the max. Our first piece of true spice is Contamination. It's going to make us sacrifice creatures during our upkeep, which is good because it's part of our strategy, and it makes it so whenever a land is tapped for mana, it only produces black mana. Therefore, our opponents can't play creatures, and they can only sacrifice lands with Braids. Time to keep messing with lands with Desolation. At the end of each turn, each player who tapped a land for mana during that turn sacrifices a land. If it's a plains, they take a little damage. Who cares? White is the worst color. We should punish them for even bringing that to our play group. We are also including a card that's very similar to Contamination. That's Infernal Darkness. It has a cumulative upkeep cost, so we can't pay it forever, but it's going to make it so all lands only tap for black, and our opponents will be sacrificing lands with those Braids triggers. We can also amplify Braids' power with Smokestack. During our upkeep, we can put a soup counter on it, and during each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a permanent for each soup counter on it. So, they're not going to have a board. We might not either, but that's part of the fun. Our final piece of upgrade fun is Tainted Ether. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, its controller sacrifices a creature or a land. Good luck on anybody having a board. We're shutting everybody down and grinding this game to a halt. If you enjoyed this build, I've got the full deck list on Moxfield, link in the description. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.